Hey party people, what's up? I am back again today. We're going to talk about the only wedding planning advice you are ever going to need for planning your wedding in 2020. Let's jump right in. If you're new to my channel, I'm Valerie Gernhauser, owner of Sapphire Events and Ruby and Pearl Events, my two wedding planning companies. I'm here to share all the information that I've learned over 10 years in the business so you are set up for success to get across the finish line for your big day and have the best day ever. So today we're going to talk about the only wedding planning advice you're ever going to need. You're probably going to want to re-watch this and write down the things that I say so you can revisit them again and again and again in your wedding planning process. I say these things all the time to every single one of my clients, no matter what. Everybody needs to hear this. So I'm recording this for you to share with somebody that you love that might need to hear it, to watch for yourself the next time you're in need of hearing these words of wisdom, and to help you get in the best frame of mind possible to maximize enjoyment of your big day. I'm going to get this out of the way because I've talked about it countless times. The biggest thing that you need to be concerned with from the very beginning to the very end is keeping your guest count as low as possible. This is going to give you a lot more flexibility with your venue and what you're able to do with a fewer number of people that you have to move in a space of limited square footage. It is going to tremendously impact your budget. We've already talked about getting to that price per person that is so critical for you in understanding what aspects of your event are going to cost at what thresholds, because the biggest check you're going to write is going to be for food and beverage for your big day, and that is directly influenced by the number of guests that you have attending the event. So the lower the number of guests, the more money you have to spend on other things, and the less you have to spend on food and beverage because you can't get away from feeding and watering your guests. The other aspect is that it is going to maximize your enjoyment of the day itself. If you are super intentional with getting your guest list down to exactly the number of people that you really want to be by your side and celebrate with you on your wedding day, this is going to increase the chances that you are not feeling overwhelmed or stressed or rushed. You're really going to get to spend a lot of the day enjoying yourself, having a good time, and having really meaningful conversations with people that you haven't seen in a long time. This is the one time in space and place where you and your fiance are bringing people together from each of your individual backgrounds to all exist in the same room at the same time to celebrate with you for the best day of your life. This is really only going to ever happen on this one day. There's no other chance for this to ever converge. All of these people from childhood and college and high school and professional life, for both of you and your families and your friends, they will never ever come together in the same room at the same time to party and celebrate with you ever again. So the more intentional you are with that guest list and keeping those numbers under control, the better it's going to be for you to maximize enjoyment of the big day. Keeping your guest list as low as you possibly can make it, that is key here. Number two, best piece of advice that I can give you at this point for you to remember throughout the planning process is you're going to have to make compromises along the way. In an ideal world, you're going to have everything that you ever imagined possible happen exactly the way that it is supposed to happen. Well, the reality of the situation is that even with the best laid plans and the most thoughtful intentions possible put into place, there are things that are inevitably going to happen beyond your control, or limitations that you might not have considered, or that just come up that you will have to be able to pivot to make a good decision, but it might not be the decision you originally thought was going to happen. Compromise is key here to the planning process and maximizing your enjoyment of the process, but also making sure that you're hitting your event goals and your financial targets throughout the planning process. You have to have a well-rounded set of expectations that there might be some things that you need to compromise on. The best way that you can help yourself early on in the process is by making a list of priorities, things that are really critical and super important to you, what you're going to invest the most amount of money in. Now, food and beverage is the biggest check that you're going to write, but where the rest of that money goes should should be faithfully invested in the things that are the most important things to you and to your partner. Making those investments in the things that are most important to you is a great way to assure that you're going to be spending money on the things that have a good impact, that you're going to remember, that are critical for your enjoyment of the day. You can be economical on all the other things. No venue is 100% perfect, so you might have some compromises or limitations there that you didn't expect. Even when you come into the planning process expecting it to be a certain way, it might not occur in the exact same way that you might have thought originally, and honestly, that's okay. You might have your heart set on a vendor that you've been following for so long that you really, really love, and they just might not be available for your date, and you have to pivot and turn and decide who you're going to have fill that spot for you. I'm sure it's all going to work out fine. There are so many wonderful professional vendors in this industry that are going to do right by you and serve you well. It's just a matter of managing your expectations up front, that compromise is a reality. In the planning process, preparing yourself for that early on is really going to be critical to maximizing your enjoyment throughout the engagement period. What you expect to happen and what you want might vary from what your partner expects. It's their day too. This is something that I always say is the first great exercise toward a lifelong commitment to somebody that you're going to be working with as a partner for the rest of your life. Compromise is key. It's a life skill, and it's something that you will definitely use throughout the planning process as well. You're going to run into a lot of things here together as a couple, coming to unified agreements and decisions that work for both of your interests. Kind of spinning off of compromise being a reality of the planning process is if you find yourself compromising something visual or experiential that you really had your heart set on, but for one reason or another, it's just not going to work out. The one thing that I want you to remember as you're planning is that your guests are only ever going to know what they see. They're not ever going to know the thing that you cut, the thing you had to sacrifice, what you wanted to happen, but what ended up happening, the really beautiful chairs that you loved at the start, but that ended up being astronomically expensive and broke the budget. These are things that your guests really aren't going to realize. What they see on the wedding day is your event day. That is it. They don't see all of the choices and the options and the decisions that you had to make. They just see the results. As you're making compromises, maybe you're struggling with a choice here, I want to bring you back to center and remember that the guests that are arriving, they're there for you. They want to celebrate you. They want to bear witness to what is amazing about the two of you coming together in love and starting your own family unit together. That's what they're here for. What they walk into on your wedding day is what they see and what they know. If you set this up for a beautiful, well thought out, seamless experience on the guest perspective, and you're thinking about how your guests will receive every single aspect, the taste, the touch, the feel, the sight, the sounds of your event, that, my friends, is really what matters. The main reason that your guests are actually there is so that they can bear witness to what is this amazing moment in both of your lives, this unifying force between the two of you, and then the celebration after, making memories, having this awesome experience, and doing that together with you. That's what matters. This one comes up kind of a lot where I am. It's a very rainy part of the country. We deal with rain a lot. If you haven't guessed it yet, you might have figured out as your next piece of advice that you absolutely have to keep in mind when planning your wedding for 2020 is that it might rain on your wedding day, and that's going to be okay. Here's my tip for you. Early on in the process, I want you to challenge yourself to think about how you're going to respond to adverse conditions when and if that inevitably happens over the course of your engagement. You should prepare yourself early on for how you're going to respond to these conditions that might not fit in your grand scheme of things. If you can take a second and sit back and envision something not going quite to plan or things beyond your control affecting the outcome of what is ultimately your best laid plans, I want you to challenge yourself to think about what you would do to respond in that situation. Picture yourself on your wedding day, marrying the love of your life, the important things that really is why you're doing all of this in the first place. Imagine how you will respond when and if these things just don't go the way that you imagined them to. It's okay to predict what you might run into that is unsavory or just not desirable, and then prepare yourself with your automated response. How are you going to react in that situation? Everything that happens this, whether it's good or bad. This is your story. This is the narrative that you are weaving through the fabric of your life legacy. This is not just any day. It's not just another Saturday to me. This is a really big day to you, to your parents, to your friends and family that are coming together to witness this. The story of your fabric is written by the responses that you give when you react to the conditions surrounding you. So if you think about one scenario, you don't have to go and Chicken Little the day and think about all the reasons why the sky is falling, but think about one possible situation that happens and what you would do to respond. So rain, that's an easy one to wrap your head around. And where I am, it quite often happens. And it rained cats and dogs on my wedding day. Believe me, I know how it is. It is something that you can definitely control in advance how you're going to respond and react given certain conditions. So I really encourage you to take a minute early on in the process before you get really emotionally involved with the planning and come up with a solution for how you're going to respond if and when things don't go quite your way. To that end, my next tip is love Plan B just as much as you love Plan A. As a planner, what I like to do with my clients, especially when we're presenting our design, which happens about 6 months out from the event date after we've gotten to know them and develop an amazing design presentation for our clients, talking to all of their vendors and developing all the ins and outs of what production's actually going to look like, I also like to present what Plan B looks like in the event of rain. It rains a lot where we have weddings. I want my clients to be prepared with the knowledge ahead of time. When this happens, what are we going to do? And what is our plan for this? If you have rain and you have to pivot to a Plan B, a rain plan, you have already made an investment in your rentals, in your flowers, in your logistics. You've already paid for that because you make all of your final payments to your vendors 30 days out. We definitely don't want you to be in a position where you're having to write all of these checks the week of your wedding when you're already pretty emotionally charged and excited. We don't need you to be thinking the week of what we're going to do for these things. We will already have a plan in place. And that's what you need to do too. You need to think about what that Plan B looks like for you. What is the optimal situation if it rains? What are you going to do to transfer the things that you've already made investments in your Plan A? How are you going to reuse those things and transition them to your Plan B to maximize your investment and your plans and everything else that you've done? As a planner, I definitely recommend communicating what that Plan B is to your creative team of vendors. Also encouraging your planner and your event manager, whoever you have on board that you've hired to guide you through this planning process, to communicate those things to you so that you have a good understanding of what that Plan B is. And then also in advance, communicate what those plans are for Plan B in the event of things beyond our control to your creative team of vendors so that everyone is prepared way in advance and we're not having to hustle the week of the event when we've already got a lot of other things going on to try and make a round peg fit into a square hole. That's not ideal. And it's going to be way more expensive than it needs to be. If we just thought about it earlier, we could avoid all of this stress because it shouldn't be stressful. It doesn't need to be. Love Plan B just as much as you love Plan A, and honestly, love Plan C and Plan D too. This goes to managing your expectations way in advance so that way you understand when this happens and we have to make a decision what this is going to look like, how you're going to respond, and move forward from there. You want to be sure that you're putting contingencies in place way in advance, so hopefully you don't have to use them because you planned for them, which is much better position to be in than not planning for contingencies and then needing them and then having to throw something together at the last minute. And remember, your guests are only going to know what they see. So whatever Plan B is, if that's what you ultimately decide to do because of the thing beyond your control that is happening, your guests will only know the experience you're offering them in that situation. They might not ever know what Plan A was supposed to be. They just know what they experienced. It just weaves into the fabric of your story, and this is going to be your living legacy. Know that it's under control and prepare yourself ahead of time, both for the logistics of how you're going to get to Plan B and also how you're going to respond. It will tremendously improve the quality of your life. Trust me on this one. Finally, the best piece of advice that you're going to get for wedding planning in 2020 is no matter what, you will be no less married at the end of the day to the love of your life, which is why everybody is coming together in the first place, why you're putting putting so much time and energy and money and emotions and commitment to putting forth the biggest event that you have ever thrown for one day. This is a monumental occasion for you and for your partner and for your families. So you want to remember the reason for the season, why you're here in the first place. It's for each other. Keep your eyes on the prize. The reason that you're all here in the first place is for the two of you. And that's it. That's the focus here. This is the reason why everybody is working so hard for this one moment in time where everybody is coming together and experiencing the same thing, watching you start your family unit together, committing to each other in front of all of your family and friends for what is bound to be the best day of your life. If you think back to one thing that I've said in any of my videos, I want you to remember this. Focus on the people, not the things. Focusing yourself and your energy and your people and keeping your eyes on the prize here with who you have surrounding you on this day is really what matters the most. That's the only wedding planning advice you're ever going to need. That's it for me. If you have more questions about wedding planning that you want me to answer, please leave me notes in the comments below. I am going to be reading those and looking for sources for more of my future videos so I can be sure to answer your questions on what you want to know. And if you like what you've seen today, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my page so that way you can be notified the next time I upload more advice. All right, guys, see you later. Bye.